my background in Zoom, so I can do it here, which is awesome. So yeah.
This is wonderful. Wait, now I think I went in through my browser. Can I change my background? Let me see.
You can. Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Looking at my stuff.
Now, do I call you Forrest or do I just call you Hawk? Forrest, are you there? Hello? Oh, hey, Jason.
Hello.
Hi, Jason.
Hi, Maggie. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
So, Forrest, do we call you Forrest or do we call you Hawk? What do you prefer?
My Chinese name is Hawk Ken, but you can call me Boris. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Easy, cool. Everyone, meet Forrest here.
Hello.
He follows me on LinkedIn. I recommend Boris to follow Peggy on LinkedIn because she does produce some very interesting articles and that's how I started following her.
I'm he.
Yeah.
I'm he. Yeah.
Let's connect. That would be wonderful.
So, and Boris, this is Jason. So, we've got some others. And here comes Sally. There we go. Hello, Sally.
Hey.
So, Sally, this is Boris here. And
Hi.
Nice to see you folks.
So, I just say to Sally, to Peggy and Jason, I just literally came up from another meeting, so it's kind of fun. But I get to have a different background here, which is awesome. Unlike Zoom.
Love that.
Yeah.
You're not going to be a cat like the lawyer?
Sorry?
That's great. I saw that.
I love that.
That was too funny.
No, I'm hoping the others that were in my meeting before attend, or they don't tell me they're going to pretend to be zoomed out and not attend now, because they were there, and I felt like saying to them, you were in that meeting with me before, come along to mine now.
Yeah.
Why not?
I know. I just think they can eat their lunch while we're chatting away, because this is more fun. Anyway. Anyway, I'll get started, because I'm very hype at the moment. But as Jason knows, when have I not been hyper? I don't know. So,
The energy.
Never.
So welcome to February's Film and Book Club. This year we decided to go with a little bit of a change, so that we're not just doing themes all the time. We actually pick a couple of items to discuss. So February is the month that we're instigating on 4 items. Now let's see if I remember them all now. It's the one I have in front of me is this one. When we were Vikings.
Can't say it.
I can't see it. Oh,
Your background.
hang on, my background. Sorry. I'll change my background. I'll get rid of my background. Sorry. Hang on. Hey. I don't know my settings. When we were Vikings, hang on, that's not right. Sorry, technical issues. Hang on, give me a second. Here we go. I don't know what I've done. Hang on. Maybe one of you guys can keep talking while I'm trying to figure this out.
So, Maggie, how is it in America now that you've got a new president? Is things
Coming
getting
down?
better?
I think, well, it's so difficult because the country was probably evenly divided 50-50. So still half of the country is very unhappy and half of the country is on cloud 9. So I think it's going to be still a rough time for us. And everybody is, I know I personally am very upset. We're all upset about the rollout of the coronavirus, the vaccine. It's been so frustrating. And I know we have a lot of friends who are in their 80s, their 90s with health issues, and they just cannot get scheduled to get the vaccine. So I think that's more on everybody's mind than anything else right now. So I think most people now are wearing the 2 masks that the CDC has recommended, still doing the social distancing. Our restaurants are open at 35% capacity. but a lot of places have gone out of business, because of the
Very sad. Yeah.
lockdowns. But I am very happy to say I got my appointment. I'll be getting my first vaccination this week, so I'm really
So
very
is
happy.
it two shots?
This is a 2-shot one. You get it,
Yeah.
and then you get the second shot 3 weeks later. And everybody who's done it already said the second shot is brutal. Like, really feel like you have the flu, and I guess but they say it's a good thing. It means your body is reacting in a good way. So I'll be really relieved when I have that.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's just my state, New Jersey, who's done a very poor job of the rollout. But I mean, that's on Facebook. That's on everybody's minds. Did you get your shot? How'd you get it? Who do you know? Because again, it seems like one of those things. If you're connected or you know somebody, you kind of get to cut the line a little bit.
Yeah.
They did, and they did it correctly. Like the very first people getting the shot are healthcare workers, as it should be, frontline. Fire department, first aid people. But the teachers are very upset because a lot of them aren't in a physical classroom with young children, and the kids just can't wear the masks all day long. So that's uppermost on everyone's mind right now. But I'm just hoping that a new president, a new time, that we'll all move forward in a positive direction.
So are they noticing, are the numbers starting to drop with the vaccines, like the number of new cases? Is there a decline yet, or is it too early?
I think that the transmission rate in our state has just gone down a little bit, but we have 9 million people in the state, and I can't even remember, a few 100,000 have been vaccinated. So they're still concerned. With us, where we got really hit, just like in New York, with the nursing homes and long-term care facilities, those were probably where 50% of the cases and the deaths occurred.
Yeah.
So it's really been tragic. And I just read that Melbourne has another lockdown.
We're in lockdown again. It started on midnight on Friday, and it's supposed to end midnight Wednesday, but they're not guaranteeing that at the moment.
Wow.
We won't find out till Wednesday whether they have to extend it or not. So yeah.
So
but we're only getting like one case a day, but they're decided to
So are your libraries physically open to people?
No, they had to shut for 5 days. So everyone's working from home again. So I have not been in my office since last March, almost a full year. Wow.
That's wild.
Yeah. And my commute was an hour and 20-minute drive one way. So I'm very happy.
That's very good. And you got a lot of snow there at the moment. It's snowing a lot in America. Or?
Yeah. We had. I'm in New Jersey. Is kind of a small state, but since I live right by the ocean, that kind of has a what would I call it, a tempering effect on snowstorms, and we don't get as much. But my friends up north got like 1 to 2 feet of snow. And last night we had an ice storm. So that was kind of pretty to wake up to it. But the minute you stepped outside, you'd slip, right on your deck or your sidewalk. But it's cold. It's 30 degrees today. And I don't know what that is in Celsius, but it was cold.
Before we start, I just realized I should ask Boris to introduce himself to everyone so we know who he is. So can you tell us 5 things about you, Boris, that the should know about you? 5 things. Any 5 you want. Besides your name, Boris.
I have worked in an academic libraries in Hong Kong, and I speak one of the dialect in Chinese, and I am concerning the information access in the Web 2.0 adoption, and I am preferring staying home in this post-pandemic era.
I agree. Very smart.
Now, Sally, can you, if Boris says something in Mandarin, would you be able to understand it or not?
No, because I
大家好，新年快乐。
我很快乐，你呢？
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
I need to get back and study. in my defense, I literally just moved house like 2 weeks ago.
And in Cantonese, 大家好，新年快樂。
Wow.
派生。
你好嗎？你好嗎？
我很好，我很好。
Yeah, nice little Chinese right there.
I guess so.
So I'm usually working in three language in the working environment: Cantonese, Mandarin, and English. And so.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, congratulations.
Boris, where are you located? Sorry.
What? Can you speak again?
Where do you live? Where do you live?
Oh, Hong Kong Island.
Wow. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So what's the weather like over there right now? Is it cold or hot?
I think I don't think the difference of the seasons, but I think is winter the weather is cold, something like that.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations, Sally, for moving. And you mentioned that in the last meeting to us. So,
I think I was looking at, I remember. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll go back to the what I was trying to say before.
Wait, Ryan, did you move too?
Not yet.
Okay.
So, soon. Not yet. But I will let you guys all know about that. Don't worry. But not yet.
Okay, and I have another question. I don't know how I go to gallery view in this. I can only see the speaker. Galley view or gallery view?
Yeah, like
it should be. There should be like on the top of your screen, like these little icons, and then there's like a 3 dots, and that gives you an extended menu.
Oh yeah.
Can you see that, Peggy?
I have 3 dots at the bottom, more actions, but that just says no meeting details.
Yep, that's the one. More
There
actions.
should be a gallery option there.
Yeah, that's correct.
Is it ticked?
When I click on show participants, but it just shows the names of the people. It doesn't show the people.
There's no option that says gallery.
And so the number of the participant, only 5 participants. And at the top of the phone version, but I cannot access it in the computer version, so I use the
I'm on a
smartphone.
Mac. I don't know if that matters.
No, I've got a Mac too, Peggy. But you downloaded the program, didn't you?
I did, but today I just went on browser view.
Oh, maybe the browser doesn't get that option then. Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I'll just watch. I'll watch one person at a time.
All good. So we decided to do a couple of books based on participant suggestion, and this is one of the books which I just finished over the weekend, and I have to say absolutely loved it. The other ones were The Good People by Hannah Kent, The Other Sister, a movie by Gary Marshall, which has Juliette Lewis in it, The Arsonist by Chloe Hooper, and there was something else, wasn't there? Something else.
I remember doing Silence of the Lambs.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Silence of the Lambs. How could you forget?
Yeah, Silence of the Lambs. Oh, yeah. Well, by Thomas Harris. And if you did watch the screenplay by Jonathan Demme. So now one of the questions you're probably going to ask me is, why did I choose all those books? If you look carefully, I don't know. Well, before I get to that, can I ask you guys one by one? Okay, so Boris, I mean, you're new to this group and all. Like, have you heard of those books or movies before, or?
In my opinion, I think one of the book, The Silence of the Lambs are popular in Hong Kong, and other maybe the other sister maybe I have seen in the University Film Sharing Club have a look, and other a little bit strange, something like that. Okay.
And going around the corner with Jason, like same question?
Oh, I think I was aware of most of them. Definitely Silence of the Lambs, I agree with Boris. Like, that's just a classic. Probably since the movie came out, when was that, early 90s, 91 or something like that? So,
1991.
Yeah, and I feel like I did read the book many years ago, but, like, I've definitely watched the film, so, for sure, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we'll go Peggy. Oh, no, Peggy, yeah.
Sure. Same thing for me. Silence of the Lambs. I was just so entranced. That movie was just like, wow. I mean, unbelievable. And I remember being so entranced that I read The Red Dragon. I think that was the one that actually comes before. But, and now, they're doing a series now called Clarice.
Yeah.
So that's just it's going to be launched soon. So I'm very interested to see how they continue that. But, it's funny. Over here, my nephew is, I think he's 40. And I don't know if it's his generation or what it is, but they can do whole dialogue from movies. It's just like a thing in Australia. So he'll do a piece. Like, what does he do from Silence of the Lambs? Puts the lotion in the bucket. Do you remember that? Put the lotion in the bucket. Do you remember that?
Put the lotion on the
bottom of the well. No. Yes. No.
Yeah.
So some of these scenes were like engraved in my brain, but I guess I just that was, and I had heard of the other one. Oh gosh, The Arsonist. Yeah, but I hadn't heard of the others that you mentioned.
And Sally?
Everyone's heard of Silence of the Lambs, and again, as an avowed chicken, I will refuse to watch it because I like sleep. But I made a start on The Arsonist, and then moving happened, and I've just been kind of too exhausted to finish it. But not so much.
Yeah. So Claire, we were just saying before I discussed the reason why I picked these particular book and films. What do you know of all those items that I listed in the email? Like,
I know that We Were Vikings is very popular because I've seen a lot of people borrow it. I haven't borrowed it yet. The Silence of the Lamb I did see. Chloe Hooper is one I do want to read. And I knew of Hannah Kenton, had read her debut novel, but hadn't read anything else by her. So that's the background.
Cool. Okay, so how I've done it is because if you look at it carefully, all of them have a disability. Think of it, because
a character with a disability.
So, like, for example, Sally, you're reading The Artist right now. We're talking about Brendan Suckerluck. He's very isolated. He's got a disability. And I listened to the audiobook of The Arsonist, and it was done by, and this for Peggy and Boris, by this well-known stage actress called Sybil Budd, and she's a fantastic stage actress. And she did the way she did the narration of that novel, and did the voice of Brendan Suckerluck, really brought him to life, and with the lists that she put on for him and so forth, and really you felt empathy for Brendan Suckerluck. And I think, Jason, did you feel empathy for Brendan Suckerluck when you read The Arsonist, or what did you?
Well, I think I'm going to say no, but it does seem to be a common trait of these people that, I don't know, that have something about fire, that they do end up sort of being involved in, like, country fire brigades and all of that. But, I suppose because there's a bit of a personal connection too, I found it a bit harder to feel sympathy for him, so,
And you seem to agree, Sally, or is that?
I think if it was a fictional novel, it would have been easier. But because from what I'm reading into the story so far, the author's very keen on, like, remember their names, these are the people who died, remember the experiences of these people. So you can't really divorce yourself from this person versus the lived experiences of, like, these people who died who got really injured. So it kind of just...
Yeah, no, that's fair point. And then going to, as people mentioned before, The Silence of the Lambs, whether you've read the Thomas Harris novel or watched the Jonathan Demme screenplay, Buffalo Bill has a disability. Yes, he's... I mean, I haven't read the book, but I think Thomas Harris goes into more detail about Buffalo Bill. Hey, Michelle!
I'm so sorry. James was not my friend. He's taken my place here. Hello, everyone.
No, not at all. No, I'm just telling the correlation between all the items that I chose for this theme. So, but before I go on, Michelle, tell me, what have you read or watched from those, a selection of The Arsonist, Silence of the Lambs, and so forth?
Well, I wasn't expecting to come today, so my reading list was for next week. So I am halfway through The Good People by Hannah Gates.
Yep, cool. And you haven't watched Silence of the Lambs by any chance, or?
I watched it when it first came out, so what's that, 30 years or so?
Fair enough.
I do remember Hannibal, as we all do, but the plot details are lost in time somewhat.
It's fine. I'll just say to them that I think with the characters I've chosen, the books I've chosen in films, they've all got a disability. And if you really look at it...
Yes. Now I see, yes.
Yeah, because... And I'm sure, like I said to them, Thomas Harris would have taught a little bit more about Buffalo Bill, the killer in Silence of the Lambs, and he has a disability. I'm trying to remember what it was, but they only touched briefly on it in the movie. I mean, yes, he does a bit of, the term in those times then was cross-dressing, but now he had a complete identity that was brought upon because I think he had a stutter or something like that, and that's what caused abuse as a child for him. I can't remember exactly. I was wanting to watch the movie before we started this.
It was like way back around that time. I did read Red Dragon and Silence of the Lambs as well, but again, the details are.
Yeah.
But you're right. Was something there.
Because and then Jason and both Sally were saying to me, the arsonists, they didn't feel too sympathetic for Brendan Suckerluck. He's deemed to, because they didn't. I didn't mean to spoil the story, but he's deemed to start the bushfires. So, and because personal effects, and I guess that criteria of Jason, how the bushfires have affected you personally, so that that could possibly, not saying this, it could cloud your judgment as well. I don't know about you, Sally, does it cloud your judgment in a sense, or?
I think because if it was a fictional character, I think it'd be easy to sympathise because,
Okay,
yeah, again, were Brian Suckerluck a real character, well, his influence only extends beyond the book, the pages of the book, but because he was a real character whose actions affect real people, it's a lot harder to be sympathetic.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, that's where that kind of comes from.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys have seen The Other Sister by Gary Marshall, the guy who did Pretty Woman and all that. Okay, so I'll give you a summary of that. Basically, Juliette Lewis plays this adult that's got development delay issues, and she's basically overprotected by her mother, who doesn't say she's ashamed of her daughter, but the way her behaviour is as a mother, as a protective mother, she stops Carla, who's played by Julia Lewis, to live a full life. And slowly through the movie, Carla begins to become more independent. She gets a boyfriend and so forth. And it's
years ago. Rings a bell.
Yeah, it's and that's that was it was panned by a lot of critics because they said that they should have got a real person who has a disability to play that character and all. But I still think to this day, even though now I work with people with disabilities and all that, I thought Juliette Lewis played the character with such conviction, and so did Giovanni Ribisi, who played her boyfriend in the film. I really thought they did well, but that's just my opinion. And that's why I tied in with the arsonist, because disability and Silence of the Lambs, and with When We Are Vikings, this book here, Zelda, the main character, the protagonist, she was born sort of she had alcohol fetus syndrome. So basically, her mother drank alcohol when she was in the womb, and she had development delays and everything. So, so that's how all these books tie in, or films tie in together. So, because of their disabilities, and I thought it would be a good way to open up discussion and so forth. So, that's what that theme is. So I like to go around the table and sorry, I didn't mention the good people. The good people. How that ties in. There is someone that has a disability in that novel, but I came upon trying to mirror together the arsonist and the good people together. One's fiction, one's factual, but in the good people, the whole village there, as Michelle has learned, is that they're all against living. The good people are evil. Is that right, Michelle? Are you getting that thinking at the moment? Yes. So, and they think that anyone who believes in the good people are out of their minds and so forth. So, and I was tying it in with the arsonist and how society makes quick judgments like that, and when people believe in things that are not the norm of society.
Is it cultural relativism, because they based on their judgment to criticize others? So I think it also bring out the cultural relativism, and I think cultural relativism is a norm in the global world, because we don't identify that because we believe our values in our society, so we cannot identify cultural relativism. So it is what I thought about that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Michelle. This is Boris here. So Michelle, that's Boris. Michelle, sorry. Bad host here, sorry. That's very good, Boris. No, that's good. This is good. So I'm going to go around the table and I'll start with Claire. You tell me what out of that list there did you read or watch any of those films there, or by chance? And if you've just started it, or that's fine, just tell me what you're up to, and take yourself off mute. So,
I read the large print copy of The Good People.
Cool.
So I could actually read it in bed without wearing glasses. And also because someone else had the other copies out. And I'm sorry to disappoint people, and if I'm hurting people's feelings about disabilities and things, I absolutely hate this with a vengeance. I cannot bear it. There's only one character I vaguely like. All the others,
Tell me which one. Who do you like?
So anyway, but I really liked Hannah Kent's previous novel. So when I started, I'm like, no, I've got to persist. There must be something good about this. And probably The Good People would be good to know, but I don't care about
about any of the other characters, so sorry, that's very brief. I wouldn't actually bother with it.
Michelle, do you want to repeat the question to Claire again? Sorry.
Which character did you like, Claire? Or was it
I liked Mary.
You like? Yes, I see that. Yes,
that's the only one I liked.
Yeah.
And of course, I do feel for Mikhail, but yeah. Sorry. No.
I found
a bit too drudgery. It would. I mean, I know it would be a terrible time to live through. But I'm just like, we can choose not to read this book, so.
Yeah.
That's not to say to the people who haven't read it that you shouldn't read it, just so you know.
No, same, I like it. So everyone's got different opinions, but it's very rare I don't like a book. So,
the first time I heard Claire say that.
Do you think, Claire, that maybe if you read The Good People first before The Burial Rites, that your opinion may have changed? Do you think if you could do
if I could unlearn what I knew about the other book, possibly, because they're both historical fiction, so but I just couldn't get into like I like to have a sympathy with some of the characters at least.
Yeah. So Michelle, have you read Burial Rites?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So tell us, like, you know, in your comparison to Burial Rites and The Good People, what do you think so far? Yeah.
I must admit, I do find Hannah Kent hard work. I have to be in the mood. They're not. I'm probably far enough into this one now that I'm wanting to keep going. Now, perhaps I'm a bit different to Claire. To give you some background, and Jason is the only one here that would know this, the main character, Nora Leigh, my maiden name is Leigh. So I suppose, and my paternal Leigh branch of the family comes from County Cork, which is right next to Killarney where this is set. So I suppose for me, I was also thinking of it in terms of my family, my background. It probably would have been very similar to them. I'm Irish Catholic like Nora. So perhaps that's why I feel a little bit more towards it, Claire. I do agree with you. It's not an easy read. The characters, the life is so hard. As was Burial Rites. I mean, Hannah Kent, I suppose that's it. Hannah Kent's not. I mean, Burial Rites. Of course, you knew from the start Agnes was going to.
I could actually develop an empathy with that.
Yes, Agnes was a likeable character.
And with
I did feel some sympathy for Nora, this character. Maybe just.
And the landscape was actually a character.
I guess this brought out a bit of my maternal. Nora loses her daughter and she's looking after her grandson, Mike. Profoundly disabled, and I think the thing that got me back then, we're people that look for answers. We want to know why was this child born with a disability? Why did this happen? Back then, of course, in the 1825, I think. There were no answers. So I guess they were sort of looking to religion, and the good people in this are a part of the Irish mythology. So like the fairies, the leprechauns, they're called the good people. In my family, it was the little people. That was sort of the term we use for that kind of thing, not meaning little in a derogatory way, but like fairy people, leprechauns, And I mean, I can even remember when I was 7, my aunt coming back from Ireland with a little toy leprechaun that I named Sean, and I was supposed to rub his tummy 3 times and make a wish, and my wish would come through. So I could sort of relate to the, I mean, of course your wishes didn't come true, and that's total rubbish, but, you know, you just brought up with these traditions and superstitions, I suppose, and the little people were, in a sense, there was a lot of superstition there as well. So well, as I say, I'm only halfway through it, but I have, you know, I'm a shocking reader. I always sneak a peek at the end anyway, so I kind of know what's going to happen. But
that's fine. That's fine.
I did find something in it, Claire. But I can see where you're coming from. That most of it's such a hard life. Most of the characters are just weighed down with, It's probably not a great lockdown book to read, to be honest.
Yeah, that's probably why I feel like I don't need.
I think that's why I like the sound of Brian's When We Were Vikings so much, because that kind of sounds fun, and you know.
Yeah.
That's got to be my next read, I think. But that was my. Yeah.
I will admit, guys, that I listened to both Hannah Kent's novels by audiobook. It was hard work. It is hard because you've got to pay attention. Not so much pay attention in comparison to. I don't know if Peggy and Boris have heard it, but this book, Something in the Water by Paula Hawkins. It's the person who did Girl on the Train.
Yes, I haven't read it yet. Yes, have you read it?
I listened to it. 26 characters. You've got to pay attention to the whole novel. 26 characters. The longest. Yeah, and people got turned off by it. Sorry?
I tried reading a Russian novel and just the names got me. So I tried reading Anna and the names got me. So it makes sound similar.
So that's the thing. So I praise Hannah Kent for her research and all that, but sometimes she can make people disconnect from her novels. So so I totally get it, and but I would say, in all honesty, I prefer The Good People over Burial Rites. That's me. Because I empathize with, which I didn't realize at the time, Mihal was Michael now. So it took me ages. Who's this Mihal? And I was like, and then I looked up Michael. Oh, of course. It's just the way they pronounce it in those days. I went, okay. So, but yeah, I really.
Then Ryan, tis the accent.
It's accent. But I really related with Nance and how she was isolated from society, and just because of her belief with the good people and all. But then I'm not spoiling the ending to any of you who haven't read it yet, but that empathy did disappear. And Michelle, I think you'll be getting to that point soon, because where you're up doing the book. I think you would.
Yes.
If you had any empathy for them, I think that's slowly waning. It'd be interesting if you came next week and tell us about.
Yeah, well, that's my plan. Yes,
that's the plan. Good, because I'd be interested to hear and to see it, because I mean that's the best thing about these meetings.
And I can write it on our Facebook page for those who won't be.
Yeah, that's good.
Who won't be there.
Yeah, I encourage you guys to write on the Facebook page, because I'm now, as of tomorrow, be private. So whatever comments you do put in that page, it won't be. None of your friends will see it. So so to feel that sense of security that's there. So
I haven't used Facebook, so
well, don't worry, that's fine. It's just an added layer for people who can't attend these meetings, Sally. So don't stress. All good.
You're making me think of other books that I've read where there is a character with a disability in the book. And did you ever read the B.A. Paris Behind Closed Doors?
I want to read that eventually.
Oh man.
Oh yeah. You need to put that. Put it in that chat there.
Okay.
Definitely. But do you want to tell us a little bit about that one, actually, even though it's not part of the one listed?
Well, it's this couple who, from the outside, appears absolutely perfect. The husband's like a high-powered lawyer, I think, very devoted to his wife. She has a disabled sister who she takes great care of. She's perfect by all appearances. Perfect hostess, the perfect gardener. Everything about her is perfect. And that's all I'm going to say, because it's like the more you read, it unfolds little by little. Unbelievable. And I just finished the second novel by B.A. Paris called The Breakdown, and I listened to that on audio. And I love listening to, in fact, if you have a good Australian reader, I love listening to like a British person, reading a British written novel. If there's an Australian novel, like what's that Australian novel? And now I can't remember it. It takes place like on a guy shows up and his brother, I think it is dead. They're in the middle of the outback.
Lost Man?
The Lost Man.
Is that it?
By Jane Harper?
Jane Harper.
Yeah. Yes. Is that it?
I'm reading that at the moment, yeah.
Okay.
He's reading the focus.
Oh, yeah, that's so funny. Okay. So that I'd like to listen to as an audiobook.
Yeah.
To me, that would give me like a real sense of place.
I'll have a look, Peggy, if it's available through BorrowBox, because you have a membership now with BorrowBox, so if that is there, because I read it because I own the book, so, but if it's not, I'll find out who has it as an audio narrative and then join with that library service, because, if you want to hear the audio narrative of it, then because I'm sure they would get an Australian to read the book to yes. I'll find out for you. But just if you could definitely utilize that Facebook page, put stuff in there, that'd be awesome. Yeah.
I think everybody would enjoy that.
Totally. Yeah. Now I'll go across the room to. Now, Michelle, have you got? Do you want to say anything else, or?
Thank you.
All good. Yep. Hey, Jason. Yep.
Can I jump in just because I'm going to have to drop out shortly because it's my mum's birthday today. So so I'm actually down in my childhood home. So I'm not in Melbourne. So I'm in my old bedroom. So I'll just be. So I got out of Melbourne before lockdown. So but we're in lockdown here too.
So where are you in Australia? Like very far away from Melbourne?
So it's about 2.5 hours east of Melbourne. So
wow.
So, but the whole state's in lockdown, so not just Melbourne. So we're all in the same. So hoping to come back later in the week, but depending on what happens. So touch wood. But I'll just mention that I did read, and it was last year now, so it's a bit hazy, but I did read The Arsonist. And Ryan touched on the personal connection, and that was it was two things. A, because it was close to Sale, where those fires took place, that are referenced in the book in Gippsland, and also because my father is a volunteer in the fire brigade, and he actually went to a couple of fires at that time down there, and I can remember somebody recording some footage that was quite terrifying of them trying to save this house, and the fire, it looked so close, like it was really scary. And I remember after the fires, we actually went back there. Dad took us, Mum and I, for a drive one day, and it was quite harrowing, like driving. The landscape was like the lunar surface. It was just like grey ash. And we actually ended up at this house that they'd actually saved, and he actually went and knocked on the door and spoke to the owner sometime after it. So it was quite scary, and it just felt a little too close to home. But the book itself I found quite harrowing too at the start, because there was a lot of references at the start as to what was happening to some of these people. Caught up in the fire, and there was particularly that scene early when they were just starting the investigations into who the arsonist was. I think there was a scene where this family were out on their front veranda, and they saw this guy dressed in khaki walking up their driveway towards them, and this was the prime suspect, and he was there at the time, and he was claiming that his car had broken down on the road or something like that. And he ended up in their house and helping them fight the fire at their house and all of that. And his behaviour just seemed very questionable, and They did, didn't they, Sally?
Yeah.
I think, yeah. They were suspicious. There was something he did that they were like, we don't want you here, sort of.
And I've been honestly struggling to get past that. I think I would.
Yeah.
Knowing that there is a point beyond that, because at the moment it just feels like all these stories of these people who've suffered in horrible ways and people who've died in these really gruesome ways, and it's like, while I understand it's important because it's telling these people's stories, it's a little bit hard to get past.
It is. It's very scary reading, and then it sort of switches gears, I suppose, into more that investigative side of it, like following this suspect and all of that, and working out exactly what happened and where he was. But it was also that thing about how the things that people recall, like in the middle of that fire, like people happened to be driving past or whatever and seeing his car, like, because he was a local, like you're seeing his car parked on the side of the road, and why is that car there, and that sort of stuff that really drew it all together. But so that once you can get past the start, and it is very upsetting to read what happened to some of these people, and knowing that this isn't a work of fiction, that this is real life stuff, and that's quite scary. So so I chose that book for that reason. But it was a harrowing read at the start.
Good to know that it actually gets better, because I have kind of put it down because I'm like, I need something that's not going to completely destroy me mentally.
No, it is. Yeah, it is quite. I'll use the word gruesome at the start, but then it does switch more to that sort of scientific and forensic analysis and how they sort of, caught onto this guy and how they managed to sort of pin everything to him, sort of. So, I haven't read any of the others. I know the Hannah Kent books are they've been book club sets, I think, with us at Monash. And, Silence of the Lambs, well, that was a fantastic film. And I think it was the sequel, Hannibal, that they made.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Years later, that was quite disappointing. They just
it was very disappointing.
And it wasn't Jodie Foster, it was another actress, and
that was
miscast, I felt. But when they did the Red Dragon film, I thought that was more faithful to the original Silence of the Lambs. Like, they recreated the sets and all of that, so it was a more faithful adaptation that linked in really well. So
which is interesting you say that, Jason, because so Julianne Moore took over the Clarice Starling role, I think. Did she or she played a new character in Hannibal? I can't remember.
No, she played Clarice.
Clarice, yeah.
She did.
I know that Jodie Foster refused to play the sequel, so she wanted to do something else. But the whole movie was like a mess, and I think it was just like a bit of a shock attack when they showed. And I'm going to spoil it here a little bit. Sorry, guys, but they spoiled it when they showed Ray Liotta's brain, and I just thought, okay, I mean, you know what?
Oh yeah.
If you're going to try to appeal to me and my dad, who was watching with me in the theater at the time, by doing this shock scene, you're not winning any favors. What was more shocking? I want to know, Peggy and Jason, anyone else, what was so creepy about the screenplay of Silence of the Lambs for you? Can you remember what was creepy? Because I'll tell you what was creepy for me, but this is not the me show. This is everyone's show here. So yeah.
I think what was creepy is that it was so true to life, because with a lot of these serial killers, like the way he faked a broken arm and wanted the senator's daughter to help him get the furniture in the van, and then he wound up hitting her over the head with it. And so the fact that these people, these predators out there, and they appeal to our human nature and our desire to help each other. If I saw somebody with a broken arm and he was struggling, I'd be the first one to say, let me help you lift that. So that was creepy. And then my girlfriends and I forever after, like if I see a white van with the side doors that open, I won't park next to it. Like we call them the serial killer vans. It's a fact on me. And I have a question, because here it's Valentine's Day. So my husband and I, it was the 25th anniversary of our first date, and I have flowers. And I'm thinking, why are we doing like these kind of awful, odd themes for Valentine's Day? But anyway, kind of a juxtaposition.
You were saying something?
just seems like when you read a lot of like real life crimes and that, how they do lure people into a car and my memory of that movie is he actually got her to get in the van first.
That's right.
Now, I think it was a sofa or a couch or something.
Yeah.
And she was on the other end of that, so she went in first, and you could see she was a bit like, oh, I'm not sure. But she did it because she obviously thought she was helping this guy, and that was the catch, sort of. But it does seem to be a common theme of how people do lure. Or they'll have a fake, like an arm in a cast, or I think some of those real-life American serial killers and that, they had, like, fake injuries or...
Exactly.
But actually it was all an act.
Jeffrey Dahmer did, I know.
He did, yeah.
And I will touch upon, you mentioned a good point there, both of you. Like, when we were biking, Zelda falls in love with this guy that she met through her brother's contacts in the drug business, and she actually falls in love with him, and he basically preys on her vulnerability, and he knows that she has a disability, and in the end he takes advantage of her, and I wouldn't say how he took advantage of her, but it's that common theme that, like, you know, sorry, I lost my train of thought now, but I'm just there's a scene with the sofa and all, how sorry, I lost my train of thought, guys. But yeah, the part of that book, it sort of ties back to the sofa, how, you know,
taking advantage of it.
It's like our trusting nature.
Yes, yeah. So, sorry, I've gone blank, guys. I've got a good point there. Yeah, but it did tie in, yes. Anyway, sorry. Never mind.
Well, you know what I find interesting is that even though that was fictional, honestly, it really had an impact on me in terms of my awareness and my personal safety. And I am a very trusting person. So, but now I kind of think twice, you know, before I get in an elevator, if they're, you know, I mean, I really, I'm much more aware of my surroundings, and I'm trusting, but I'm trying to be more aware of not everybody is a really nice person, which I would say were, but they aren't. So.
Well, that's what Zelda learns in this book. When we were biking, she learns about, even though she's got this disability, she learns about people, and and she like, similar to Carla, she learns, like, you know, not everyone can be trusted. So but one thing else that I would touch upon, you guys, with Silence of the Lambs, especially with the screenplays, how the actor who played Buffalo Bill, how he portrayed, you know, doing that kind of cross-dressing, and he just was very scary, like, you know, how he just wanted to become a woman. So just that was just well done, and like even though that it may not have been caught many people's mind, but I thought it was quite creepy as well. Like, you know, that he would, after he killed these women, he would then start immortalizing what they were when he met them. So
I've had a different perspective on this. There's a YouTuber called...
I'm gonna go. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.
Happy birthday to your mother.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Sorry.
No, that's all right. There's a YouTuber, she's a trans woman, ContraPoints, and she posits that Buffalo Bill in that respect is one way of, like, villainizing trans people, because this character clearly wants to be a woman, and the only way he sees of being a woman is by killing them and dressing them up. So that's just a different perspective.
Yeah, no. I agree. I mean, that's why I guess, in a sense, I feel empathy for Buffalo Bill. I'm sorry to say that, but I do, and same with Brendan Suckerluck. I have this way of thinking where, even though they may be proven guilty, I feel there's a story there that has to be explored, and I need to see the side of where their thinking is. Why did they do this, and so forth. And I'm not going to say I don't judge them. I do judge them, but I tend to try to bring myself back to center and see why do they do this. I'm not excusing their behavior, but I'm just acknowledging it and trying to see where what the reasoning is behind it. I think if I didn't become a librarian, I would love to do criminology. That would be so interesting for me. I would love to do
a podcast that's actually probably right up your alley. I think it's done by a University of Southern Queensland, I can't remember, and it's a head criminologist there, and it's only 3 episodes so far, and I'm at 2 episodes in, and it's talking to people who've done time in prison. For the first guy I listened to was a murder charge, and the other person I listened to was first time he did smuggle drugs internationally. He got busted. So it was listening to those stories and listening to the personalities around those things and the circumstances, particularly with the murder one, where this guy basically grew up never feeling safe at all. But you do get the sense of like a full person beyond just like what they were charged with. So I quite liked it. So.
Can you put that in the chat for us, Sally? Then I'll add it to the Facebook page as well. That'd be awesome.
I will have to look it up. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, awesome. Cool.
Sally, I think I mentioned, I don't know if you were I think I missed the last session, but the one before that I mentioned that I'm running a program from the State Library called Fresh Start, where we're assisting the formerly incarcerated. So we just applied for a second grant. Yeah, we just applied for a second grant from the Institute of Museum and Library Services for like $890,000. And this time we're focusing on women. And it was very interesting because we just had I wonder if I could get this woman to come to the book club. She was 17 years old and she went with her boyfriend and 2 other guys. Supposed to be a drug deal. And she said she really didn't know what was happening, but they were supposed to be selling like $15,000 worth of marijuana. So they get to the appointed place, and her boyfriend got out of the car, and he got in the other car, and he shot the 2 men and killed them both. They didn't have money. It was like a movie. They had $20 bills like just on top of brown paper to make it look like they had money. But her boyfriend, they didn't have any marijuana. They had garbage bags filled with rags. They were each out to shaft each other. But she was found guilty. She was the driver, and she had to serve 16 years, and she just got her sentence commuted. But now she's got a master's in social work, and her life's work is helping other women. And she said, listen, I was sexually abused. I never knew safety, which made me think about what you had just said. I never felt support. And being in this gang made me feel like I had a home, and I had people who were going to look out for me. But it was really fascinating, as you said, when you read about it, you think, well, gosh, what was she doing in the car? And that's terrible, and she should go to prison. But when you really hear there's so much more to her story, and so much more that made her choose that life, really does make you feel much more empathetic.
And there's one thing I actually found particularly quite like, again, from the 2 podcasts I've listened, is the number of, obviously the conversation goes to, like, how have you found, like, getting employment, blah, blah, blah. And one of the biggest takeaways was the number of transferable skills you learn in prison that would apply to the outside world. Like, the guy with the drugs charge, he was like, well, you're pretty keen on feedback when you're dealing drugs, for example. And I quite like that.
Yes.
So,
Exactly.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, the guy who runs the program for me was in prison for 25 years for armed robbery. So he didn't have a car when he first started as my project director, so I'd drive us everywhere. So at the first time we went out together, and I backed into a parking space, and I said, I hope you don't mind, I just want to back in. He said, Peg, you're talking to an armed robber. He said, I always want to be ready for a quick getaway. Great for you.
I like that he can joke about that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Let me speak to that next point, Peggy. That how society, they would look at his resume and say, oh, he's been in prison for so many years, I'm not going to hire him. And like they have that. I don't know if they have it in the United States, but they have in those application forms for when you apply for jobs here in Australia, where you feel confronted by that question where it says, "Oh, have you
Been convicted?
Have been convicted for any crimes?" And I feel very if I say yes, I'm not going to get hired, and then and there's only I remember I clicked on when I applied for a job quite recently. I actually clicked on and said yes. One of them didn't have a box for me to explain myself. I thought, ooh, lucky I didn't commit a crime. So so it's like a basic yes or no answer, and I just thought, but there could be more reasoning behind why I was convicted for a crime, and I thought.
Like if you committed the crime as a juvenile, for example, and you're not a juvenile.
Yeah, exactly. So I just thought,
I think they have to give a time frame now.
Like,
it has to have been in the last 10 years.
Okay.
Otherwise,
and in our state, they just made that illegal, so they aren't allowed to ask if you've been in prison. So one of the things we teach them interview skills and how do you account for your time away, and how do you take, like, if you learn to cook or you run the laundry or whatever. And that was my project manager, John Dye, is his name, John Dye Harrell. He said he was a librarian in the prison. He said, this is such a good fit. He said, because in prison, the library is the place that you go when you really are ready to turn your life around. It's the intellectual center of the prison. So he says, for people to come out, it's just such a good fit because it's certainly in the library, anybody can walk in. You don't have to show ID. You don't have to account for why you're there. So people feel a sense of comfort already. And they feel the familiarity from having, advanced their cause or their life, their bid for freedom, and their readiness to prepare, to go home while they were in the library. So it's really a fascinating program, and like Sally was saying, John Dye talks about entrepreneurial skills, that when you're selling drugs, marketing, hiring and firing, what's trending, in the neighborhood, you're aware of all this. So he has a guy who teaches entrepreneurial skills in prison, and then we're trying to connect them with potential funders when they come out. So the project just seems to be getting bigger and bigger. And in fact, I just want to say this last thing. We got some money, and we have billboards now that say, "Home from prison, we can help," with a toll-free number. Fresh start at your library, and we got bus wraps, so our ads go on the back of buses. So we're excited about that. I'll put pictures of that on the Facebook page. It's pretty neat.
Yes.
No, that just sounds like such an amazing thing. Oh my God, I really hope that wish you nothing but success, because it just sounds like a fantastic program.
I highly agree. Yeah. Now I want to touch upon that point when I mentioned before about convicted in job application. Boris, when you apply for jobs, or when you in your current job now, does it have those questions in the application form, like when you apply for a job?
I have applied the human resource job. It requires me to take the boxes yes or no. Do you have a crime record for child abuse or others about drug or other crime record? I think it is for the security for their company, and I think that it is related to the cyber ethic and about the crime in the web 2.0, because now we can apply the job in the web, and some people will lie to the employer and then to hide their background. So I think it is making sense, but it is about the private right and something like that. So it is what I think, and I think that they are based on the interview and the form to know what the person you are, something like that.
Cool. Yeah, no, I was just curious, that's all. Oh, cool. Now, let's get back to the topic
and to the Hong Kong case, there are some people are afraid about the background check because of their political background, but some are not afraid because they don't do anything is related to politics, so they don't be afraid to have a background check. But I think the background check is what the global issue, because I think in US and other countries have democracy also have a background check, something like that. So not just the country not have democracy, but also the country have democracy also will have a background check.
Yeah. Cool. Now, what I was going to say next was, what was I going to say? Okay, well, so I'm just gathering some thoughts here. So, obviously, none of you guys have read When We Were Vikings, so I'll give a little summary of that. So, basically, this lovely book here, I can't remember how I got onto it, to be honest. It was published in 2020, so by this new author, Andrew David McDonald, and he actually wrote parts of the book in several libraries in Canada and in New York. Wow. So, yeah. So, because he doesn't have a social media page or anything, and I was reading up about that. So, he's just like Melanie Cheng. Peggy and Boris, you probably won't know about that author, but she's a fantastic Australian author. Who's have you heard of her, Sally and Claire?
No.
Oh, okay. Oh, you have. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, no. Sally, Melanie Cheng is she wrote her second novel, Room for Strangers, all in Carlton Library. So, which is one of the library services I work at. So, yeah. So, pretty much used the Wi-Fi there and just wrote the first draft there. So, and this is what this is what Andrew did with this novel. He actually wrote a short novel on Zelda's brother, who plays a big part in this novel here, Gert, Gert, and but then he was kind of encouraged to explore the side of his sister, which is Zelda, and then she takes the you see the side of what she sees of the world and so forth. And Zelda, so she's got a disability and she goes to a community centre to fill up her day, but then she gets a job in a library as well. So, so it's, and that's where she meets, or she falls in love. She's already in love with someone else at a community centre, but there's one part of the novel which has caused a great discussion in Goodreads, how they talk about sex. But I think people, I don't know about you guys, but do you think as you get older, do you start getting more prudish about sex and being in novels and films and that, or what? I want to hear your thoughts. Oops, somebody else. Oh, Nicole, hello.
I'll be right back.
I'm probably the opposite.
Oh, really?
Unless I'm like Claire, I'm more laid back now than I used to be.
Fair enough. Can you hear us, Nicole?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. There you go.
This is the first time I've used Microsoft Meeting, so bear with me while I find my way around.
No, that's okay. I'll just introduce you to the people here. So I don't know which order they're in, but there's Claire. And there's Michelle. They all work with me at Monash Libraries, public libraries. And then I got Sally here, who I met through one of the Australian Library Association talks. And I got Peggy here, who I met through LinkedIn. And then also Boris as well, who's just joining us for the first time as well. So, we're just talking about the book I read called When We Were Vikings, which I did talk about what are we reading. Absolutely love this novel. So, and I was just saying, I was just saying what the book's about and everything. So, and basically it's about the relationship between Zelda and how she meets people and living with her brother and trying to become independent in a sense. she discovers that Gert is earning money in a very questionable manner, which is drugs. So, but yeah, and then we're talking about sex and how. Do you feel? I'm going to ask you, Nicole, because I mean, other people have just said before. How do you feel about sex? Do you feel you're getting more prudish as you get older, or do you feel the opposite, like Claire?
Probably opposite.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's fair call. I must admit, in this context of the book, when they talk about sex and all that, like, I think people with disabilities should experience their sexual nature in it, and I warranted the way how she experienced her sex life in this book, and but somebody in Goodreads said, the way Andrew described it was very creepy and all that. I just thought, people with disabilities have just the same rights and needs as a person with no disabilities. I just thought, what's this woman on about? And I just sort of like,
it's like some people get a bit, people with disabilities, they've got the intellect of children, which is obviously like not true. Like I think there's a lady in a wheelchair who I follow. She's from Florida, and she's quite open about like how she loves wearing lingerie and how she wants to be the next Bachelorette, which I totally want for her because I think she'd like absolutely kill it. But yeah, so I think there is a big push from what I've seen of people with disabilities on Instagram, particularly about like the disabled people totally should have be able to bone with no judgment, basically.
Totally, I agree. Yeah, so I definitely get this book, guys. I didn't read it. I mean, I can't wait for Michelle and Claire to read this because we can if you want to talk about this book in more greater detail in a future book and film. We can because in December there's International Disability Day, so we can bring that in for December if we want to. So because I just loved it. For 2021, we only just started with 2021, but that's become my favorite so far. Like for 2021. So yeah. But enough about me. Let's go back to okay, so Claire, do you want to bring a topic into the situation of this book club? Or maybe Nicole. Actually, before you go to Claire, Nicole, tell me, have you read any or watched any of those stuff that I'm introduced in the email? Or yeah.
Yeah, I have. So, but I haven't read things recently from that list. I've read The Good People when it first came out. I can't remember what else was on there. The Hannibal Lecter movie, I've seen that, but that was quite traumatic. It was just way too scary for me. Yeah, I think that's it. I think from that group.
Yeah. So I mentioned to them before, Nicole, was that the reason why I chose all these books and films where they all have they all have a disability. So if you think of it very carefully, as you see from Silence of the Lambs, Buffalo Bill has a disability, and besides being abused as a child, but I mean, he has a lisp in it from memory. I remember from the film. So, and Brendan Sackler has a lisp from The Arsonist, and he's also got a development delay, which also Zelda has as well, and so does Carla from the other sister of the film. Gary Marshall directed that film, who did Pretty Woman. So that's all, they're all tied together, and how society judges them, and that's where The Good People by Hannah Kate comes in, because they treat, even though Mee Hall has a disability, society thinks that, believing in fairies like of the good people, that you have a disability yourself, and they judge people so quickly because they believe in something that's not the norm. So that's how they're all tying together. So, but yeah, so like I'd like for you to tell us what did you think of the Good People, like, you know, and then Michelle and Claire can give you their insight. Sorry to repeat yourself, guys, but I mean it's good to really get that essence in. So yeah, from different perspectives. So yeah.
I'm going to admit it was quite a long time since I've read it. So apart from remembering about what the fairies, you know, the difference, the customs of what you would do to keep the fairies happy, sort of things that are quite interesting. I probably don't have too much to say this time. I was more going to sort of just be more of an observer. Sorry. To be honest, because this is my first ever book club that I've ever been involved with, so I'm not really sure how it all works.
It's very loose. It's very. I just like to get people involved because I don't want it to become the me show. So,
sorry, excuse me. And I want to add that the Good People also point out the conflict and issue in the identification in society because of so many values in the society, and also have a stereotype from people. So I think it also point out the education is important to give people correct knowledge about the thing that you need to acknowledge in the society and the global world. But the stereotype and misinformation and fake news spread everywhere, especially some misunderstanding in the tradition because in the past people believe in God because they don't know the science, so they don't have a religion existence. So I think it also point out the identification in society. Who am I? Something like that.
Yeah. So, I'll make you an observer again, Nicole, and I'll go back to Claire, Michelle, if you don't mind. What was I trying to get you guys to do, Claire and Michelle?
Well, we already spoke about our book, but unfortunately, Nicole, I didn't have a very good impression of the Good People, so I didn't really enjoy it. But hearing Michelle talk about her background and everything, it's interesting. But my forebears are from Roscommon in Ireland, so yeah, I've got a similar background, but it still didn't make me enjoy it any better.
So I think for me, and I'm halfway through it, Nicole, just quickly. So Nora Leigh, the main character, my maiden name was Leigh, so I was kind of relating to my ancestors who were obviously on my father's side were from the neighbouring county to where this is set, that my family's from Cornwall and Killarney is right next door. So I find Hannah Kent not an easy read. I've kind of got to be in the mood for it, but I suppose I was sort of looking at it more just through my family's eyes and wondering if, they would have lived just in a similar, situation. So I probably got a little bit more from it than Claire did.
Although I do sympathise, it would have been a terrible...
Yeah. I mean, Claire and I were basically saying most of the character... the life was so hard. I think Claire said there was only one character that she really liked, and I get that. They through the hardship of their life, it's not that they were horrible people. They were just so where's my next meal coming from? Where all of that downtroddeness. Yeah, was sort of overwhelming them, I guess. So, not an easy, happy read, that's for sure. But I did find it interesting, yeah.
Oh, here we go. Oh, this is perfect. Oh, good. Awesome. I'm going to add that to the Facebook Facebook. But actually, Boris, do you want to add it to the Facebook as well? Besides the chat here, because I know with the chat it gets lost otherwise. So, but yeah, that'd be awesome if you could put it there as well in that chat. I mean the Facebook wall in that group there. That'd be awesome. Cool, because we can refer to it. Yeah. Yeah, and I was saying to Nicole, also, I enjoyed the good people more than burial rights. Maybe because maybe what happened to, what's her name? What was the character's name in the burial rights? The main one that died?
Agnes. Wasn't it?
Oh, you know, Claire? Was it Agnes?
I think so.
Something like that.
Hang on. Why don't we Google it? Hang on. Burial rights main character.
Okay. Sorry.
Oh, you got to go, Claire. Oh, cool.
It was Agnes. I can't remember. Agnes Montgomery or something.
Agnes with a name I can't pronounce afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think because what happened to Agnes, even though I knew it was coming, like, here we go. Magnus. I can't say it. But yeah. So I think that's why. But and I just think I'll just put it there. Sorry. I just think if Claire read maybe the good people before she read burial rights, maybe it'd be a different perspective. I don't know, maybe. So, but that's because I think some of the people who read the sophomore or the second novel of an author that's critically acclaimed their first novel, they suffer that slump. And but then speaking of that, I know somebody enjoyed Forces of Nature by Jane Harper more than The Dry. So go figure. So yeah, that's the thing. So I like Forces of Nature, but I don't think it was better than The Dry. But that's so. But yeah, but then I didn't really like The Lost Man by Jane Harper. So I think she's like gone down a sliding scale. So yeah, but yeah, that's just my opinion, someone else's opinion. So, and that's the thing. That's how this works, Nicole. We just share opinions, and I try to just get people involved if they can, if they feel comfortable. And by also, if people are not comfortable doing video chats, they can just contribute to the Facebook wall, and their opinions or suggestions of how they want this group to go forward. Because I'm all for it. This arrangement of this meeting came about thanks to Michelle. So I would have never considered it. I was dead against, and Michelle knows this, I was dead against book clubs. Because I just thought, this is boring. I don't want people to just read one book only and share your opinions. I want to get a variety. And so, but then I analysed it and I thought, hang on, I'm being closed-minded here. Why don't we just bring the element of book club in, but just bring a whole bunch of books together, and then that's a rich discussion, I think. So, but yeah, does anyone else have anything to contribute, or are we all teamed out? Probably.
I think the thing I loved about the Hannah Kent book, that I adored Burial Rights, because I've actually visited Iceland. So
there you go. Yep.
And I think the same with the good people. If you know the area and you understand in those times how hard it must have been, I think you can really develop that empathy for those characters. When you've been to a place and you know that area, you know the geology and the hills and the grass and all that sort of stuff, it becomes very familiar, and it's something that just sort of grabs your interest. And I think with the Jane Harper books being the Australian outback and the forests experience, and the last one, the survivors, being on the beach sort of cliffs and that sort of thing, we can all relate to that. So that visualization in your head, helps.
And I'm happy to join the discussion because those films and books remind me some concept in my study in the social science, and I think those concepts are useful in my career, and I'm thankful we have a detailed discussion of the books and films, and have a comfortable thoughts in the online.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and that brings another good point, Nicole. You mentioned there because that does influence how you relate to a novel or a film and such. If you've been to that location, and it just goes back to Sally and Jason, how they mentioned the arsonist, how I don't know if arsonist delves into something. Oh, you said about fiction and non-fiction, but Jason's dad, Nicole, is a volunteer firefighter. Well, he was a firefighter. Now he does the kind of upper management kind of that volunteer service, and he couldn't. I guess that affected his judgment when he read the novel of The Arsonist. So it's a good point that you mentioned there, because that does affect you. While I do make judgments, but then I try to bring myself to center and see all points of view. So even with Buffalo Bill, he's probably evil, but I try to see the reason behind it, but not excusing their behaviors, I guess, in a sense. So anyone else want to add anything else, or should we just team out?
Unrelated, but Sally, can I just see what you're making there? I saw a glimpse of it. It looks beautiful.
This is a shawl I've been working on for roughly forever, called Vortex Shawl. So
I love the colours. Beautiful.
Oh, how beautiful.
It is lovely, but it is also, that's the plan, is that I can sort of pay attention but also work on it. But it is taking so
it's beautiful. Thank you.
I totally encourage. Unfortunately, poor Peggy can't join because it'll be 3:00 in the morning. But but I totally encourage Nicole and Boris and Sally, if you wanted to come next Tuesday evening to the other chat, because it even though we're doing the same content, it's different people bring different perspectives, and I don't, when I come to these chats, I don't plan ahead. I just go with the feeling, and just that's why I sort of stumble at times when I've lost my train of thought, because maybe I should plan ahead, but I just with things that you guys say inspire me to say stuff. So and I could plan ahead for that. So but I totally encourage you guys to come along next Tuesday. It starts at 6:30. Bring your dinner along. Peggy, if you want to get up at 3:00 in the morning, you're more than welcome to. So I can tell you guys now, Boris, Nicole, that I'm taking Peggy and Sally on a road trip with Michelle and Jason and I to Hanging Rock next month. In March, so you will be part of that journey. So please come along when I do send the dates out, because if Nicole, because you live in Melbourne, you're more than welcome to come in person to join us. So because we'll do one of the sessions there in a different setting that's not in my apartment. So so because I have,
as long as it doesn't rain, Ryan.
And if we're out of lockdown,
if it rains.
If it does rain, you'll just see a whole bunch of people in a car with their masks on, and then you go to a cafe and just say, okay, we're in the Hanging Rock area, but it's indoors. Michelle, I don't care, rain, hell or shine. So
Ryan, I mention because of this theme. I'm seeing the theme of people with different disabilities.
Sorry.
And I love one of our libraries here. We have a I attended it last, I guess it was 2 years ago now, but they had 200 people show up, and it was a job fair for young people who were disabled. A lot of the young people had Down syndrome.
Bye, Sally.
Bye, Sally. And right in our state, by the time these kids are 18 years old, they kind of age out of social services. So the parents say that the kids are bored. So this library, they have a social get-together and dances for these 18 to 25-year-old disabled young adults. But this job fair was phenomenal. So they had local, like Amazon warehouse and local food stores, and they were actually hiring on the spot. And the parents were just thrilled. They had never seen a job fair specifically for this population. So it was very, very successful. Like you said, a job and a life, and to be able to earn money just like everybody else.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. That's with Zelda here in this book. So I keep on promoting the book. Sorry. Highly recommend.
Ryan, can I ask? Do you have shares in that book or something?
I actually want to get the author to appear at Monash through Zoom if I can. I really think this book can open up discussions with the people.
I'm very eager to read it now. You're really doing it right. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't care if you guys don't like the novel, if you relate with it, but I just think this author should be totally praised. I'm actually surprised it's not part of a book club that I've seen of. No one
is so new, it's still pretty new, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know, but Peggy, if you can get a hand of this book, totally, read it because you'll love it. So
yeah, I will. I'll definitely go for it.
Yeah. So, but thank you guys for coming. I really appreciate it. Boris, Nicole, please come along next Tuesday at 6:30. Oh, what time is it in Hong Kong now? Right now, Boris.
11:04.
Oh, you're on mute. Oh.
Sorry. 11:04.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're
3 hours behind Melbourne.
3 hours behind. Okay, so Boris, if you want to come along next Tuesday night, please do, and Nicole, more than welcome to. And see what it's like. Because I do alternate the days of. So Peggy and Dawn come along as well to the other meeting as well. So different days. So,
and it is an insightful discussion and chat. Thank you very much for inviting me to join it.
You're welcome. No, thank you very much.
Nice to meet you, Boris.
Yeah, nice to meet you. And
very nice to meet you.
Yeah, and I'll talk to you guys next month. Yeah.
Thanks for setting this up. It was wonderful.
Thank you, Ryan.
Nice to see you.